All right. So in 2022, I competed for the first time under a sanctioned event. I competed first in May under the CPL before transitioning to the WRPF to compete in November. And in that time, I hired myself a coach. I hired JF Caron to be my coach because I wanted to get into strongman. And after 2022 was done, it was time to do that, to finally do something I'd always said I wanted to try, because it's one of those things that I would see on TV, and you see the Brian Shaws, the Eddie Halls, the Derek Poundstones, those kind of guys, and you say, I'd like to do that one day. I'd like to give that a shot. But you never consider it as being something that is feasible, especially living in Canada at the time. Growing up, there was really not that many options for amateurs. At least I didn't feel that way. So throughout 2021 and into 2022, that was when I started to do my research, and I found out that there are amateur shows around. So I did a bit of digging and found out about SCC, Strongman Corp Canada, and reached out to a couple of people about what was I going to do. So JF kind of guided me in that sense. And the first show I did was the Weight Pit. They had done a show the year before. Obviously, I didn't do that. But the Weight Pit 2023 was going to be my first ever strongman show. I was super excited. I trained my ass off from the time that the Apex Tournament of Power ended in November right through to March, and I was ready. I was in the 120 kilogram, the under 120 kilogram group, and I was super excited. And then I was about a week out. It wasn't my deload week. I was headed into my deload week, and I got hurt. I had an injury in my bicep. Because of the property I live on, I have about 500-ish feet of driveway that I need to blow out with my tractor for snow removal in the winter. And I have a rear mounted snow blower. And I was reaching behind to crank to turn the chute, and it was kind of frozen. So I leaned on it and injured my bicep. And it sucked. I was super, super bummed out about that, but I wasn't going to let it deter me. I said, you know what? No, I'm going to go ahead with this. I've signed up. We're just going to do it. There were a couple of events that would be hindered by this, but you know what? It is what it is. So, first event on the day was the deadlift medley. It was an axle bar at 385 pounds, and then we moved on to a stiff bar at 451 pounds, a deadlift bar at 518 pounds, and then a trap bar at 600 pounds. I was very confident going into this event because in November, I pulled 585 on a deadlift bar in my powerlifting event. So I thought, 385 on an axle, no problem. I'd never pulled on an axle in my life. I didn't own an axle at the time. And I thought, yeah, piece of cake, no problem. Stiff bar 451, deadlift bar 518, yeah, no problem, whatever. Trap bar 600 pounds. I had a big trap bar, that trap bar in the back that's behind me actually, there, wherever, somewhere. I had trained on that. I'd pulled 600 in it before. I thought, piece of cake. Deadlift medley I got. Well, not so much. It was slow. They let us strap in on the axle bar before they started the timer, and I opted not to. In my arrogance, I thought I could pull it just over under grip and move on to the stiff bar. Now, I think that it'd still be a good pull for me. I'd probably still use straps just since we were allowed to use them. On the stiff bar and the deadlift bar, probably not, because those are fairly easy pulls for me right now, but back then they weren't. So I lost a lot of time goofing around on the axle bar. Despite Justin Zottel being right there telling me to strap in, I blatantly ignored his advice and did the opposite. And it cost me. So I ended up pulling the axle, the stiff bar, the deadlift bar, but not the trap bar. And whether it was nerves or the injury, I don't know, but it didn't go. The Viking press was up next. It was on a lever implement to make it a little bit easier with the weight kind of mounted at the front. I had used this a couple of weeks before the event. I got up to about 255 pounds, 260 maybe on it, and felt pretty good. But obviously with this injury, it wasn't going to go. 275 was the weight for our group. It just wasn't, it wasn't meant to be. I was injured. I tried it the once and just, I couldn't lift my arm past here. This was it. I couldn't lift my arm above my head. I couldn't do this. I couldn't wave it around, nothing. Like this, my range of motion was, it was already limited, but it's even more limited now. So the Viking press was out. Then we moved on to the sandbag carry into the wheelbarrow. It was a 200-pound sandbag and a 760-pound wheelbarrow. The unfortunate part was, I believe after I went, they broke the wheelbarrow. So I felt kind of bad for everybody that went after me, because they had the weights mounted between the handles on the wheelbarrow, and with it being dropped on that weight, it eventually just broke. So they had to kind of improvise after that. Regardless, for me, it was a 200-pound sandbag to the wheelbarrow, and I couldn't pick up the wheelbarrow. I felt a lot like Trey Mitchell being frozen. Like, my grip's not terrible. It's not the best, but it's not awful. And here I was, couldn't even budge it. Couldn't even get it off the ground to move it an inch. I got the sandbag into it, but couldn't move the wheelbarrow, so that sucked. And then we went on to the tire flip simulator. I can't remember. They have a nickname for this in CrossFit, but I can't remember what it's called. It's like it's a sled almost with the weights on it, and you're meant to pick it up and dump it over. Our weights were 606 pounds. And again, I could get it to about here, but that was it. It wasn't going past that. Truthfully, even being 100%, I don't know if I would have got it. I just, at that time in my life and in my training, I don't think I would have even got it healthy. So that was neither here nor there. We moved on to the sandbag toss. It was a 15-foot bar. The weights were 30, 35, 40, 45, and 50. Having only tossed one sandbag before that, because I bought one to train for this. I don't know what I had in my bag. I think it was about 30 pounds, and that kind of showed here. Again, the extension here I could do, but it hurt. And I could feel it every time I brought my arm up. I could feel it pinching. So I got the 30-pound bag, and that was it. That was as far as I got on that. So there were a couple of positives from that. One, reminded of my support group, which was great. Having some of my best friends there, especially for my first strongman show, was great. I felt like I let them down because I put an immense pressure on myself. I try not to run my mouth too much because I don't like to hype it up and then end up being a disappointment. I felt like a disappointment anyways. Not that they cared. They were just there to support me, which meant a lot to me. And it was a learning experience. So I zeroed some things. Out of the events, I zeroed 2 of them. It sucked, but it is what it is. All right, after that, we moved on to Battle at the Brink. This was Andrew's first show. And first of all, before I move on to Andrew, big shout out to Pav, who runs the weight pit. He was super helpful in getting me set up for that first show and has been super helpful ever since. I've done his shows, I say every year. This was my 3rd year doing it. I say it like I'm a seasoned vet, and I'm not. But I've done Pav's shows, and 2023 was also my first time dealing with Andrew, who is a big part of SCC and ran his show in Niagara that year. And I was super proud and super happy to be a part of it. I was very much looking forward to his show. I also got a chance to get to know a couple of other guys in my group that I still compete with to this day, Zach and Paul, both super strong guys that I look up to in a lot of ways and hope to be strong like them in a lot of ways. So Andrew was also super helpful in getting me set for this show because I was still nervous. I was still anxious about, who do I talk to? What do I do? So again, I had a great support group for this one, but again, I got hurt like the week of deload week. And I'm going to show a picture at the end of my little talk here about it. So just be warned about that. I basically had an awful sinus infection, and I ended up rupturing all the blood vessels in one of my eyes, and I think it was my left eye. So I couldn't see, I couldn't open my eyes, and I just had this pressure building behind my eyes all day, which I just could not deal with. But again, I had to do it. And then I had a friend of mine gave me some trial pre-workout that I tried the day of, which also wasn't smart. My coach always told me never try anything new the day of, and I should have listened. Again, I learn all these the hard way. They tell me not to do things and I do them, and then it doesn't work out. And shock, listen to the people that know what they're talking about. You don't listen to them, and look what happens. I took the pre-workout and had I basically had a panic attack. I couldn't feel my hands, couldn't feel my arms. The first event on the day was sandbag to yoke. It was a 275-pound sandbag and a 720-pound yoke. And I moved the sandbag a bit, but not far. And I couldn't feel it. I literally went to pick it up and lap it and could not feel it. And it wasn't great. Never got to the yoke. Not sure I could have done the yoke anyways. I never got up to that weight in training. I got to around 600 pounds training here at my house, but never got close to 700 pounds. I don't know if I would have had it. Probably not. I may have been able to pick it. I don't know if I was going to walk with it. So not a great start to the day. The second event was a rope drag into arm over arm. We were pulling a truck. Super easy to train. I was able to train it at home. I pulled my truck down one section of my driveway, which I pulled it for about 50 feet. I think we had to do longer than that. I think we did close to, it might not have been 100 feet, might have been 75 or 80 feet for the day of. But Andrew, in his infinite want to see fat guys run, made us start at the truck, run down to the end, jump behind the yoke, and then start pulling the truck. So I was already gassed by the time I got down there, because I don't know if you know this or not, I'm kind of, not only am I built like a T-Rex, I'm also like part turtle. I'm very round and robust, so I don't run very well. I got it going, and then I made an error where I was pulling, and I swear I heard someone yell stop or time. To this day, I heard them say that. So I stopped pulling, and then I got yelled at to get back down there because I still had time, but by then I was already screwed. I had to get the truck started again. So I got distance on it. I didn't finish it. I got some distance on it. It was good enough for me. That's what I'd like to do again. Next event, overhead medley. Bicep still wasn't 100%, but it was a lot better than what it was in March because I'd had a couple of months to rehab it. I had prepared myself for this kind of. I had a log by this point, and I had a circus dumbbell at this point. But I was never... Our weights for this event, we had to start at... I'll start from the beginning because my ADHD brain jumps all over the place. The medley was dumbbells at 95 pounds, log at 265 pounds, circus dumbbell at 175 pounds. Now, today, the dumbbells and the log would not be a problem. Circus dumbbell might still give me issues. I've pressed 165 for one in training and 155 in comp. So 175 would be a good press for me right now, but the other two I could get. I couldn't even get the dumbbells. And again, silly me. I tried something new on day of. I bought myself a pair of elbow sleeves that were way too tight. So trying to get the dumbbells into position was not possible because the sleeves stopped me here. I could get them here, but I couldn't finish it. And it's because I didn't use the sleeves I'd been using in training. I tried something new day of, which, folks, never do. Don't do it. Didn't work for me. Just please. So I zeroed it. It sucked. Again, that was another blow because I felt like a failure, but we got to move on. So sandbag toss was the last event, 15-foot bar. Weights went up by 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60 pounds. Hit 20 pounds, struggled with 30, but got 30, and then missed 40, and then obviously didn't do the rest. So sandbag toss continues to be an issue for me. But I'm going to put the picture up now, so just fair warning. This is what I looked like the next day. So I took this picture the next morning. I gone home Saturday night. This would have been 2 days later, actually, now that I think about it, because we stayed at an Airbnb that night in Niagara, and then drove home on the Sunday afternoon. So this would have been Monday morning that I took this picture, and this is how bad it was even 2 days later. So just fair warning, skip ahead if you don't want to see it, but it was not a fun time at all. But that event, I podiumed. I'm going to put it in quotation marks. I podiumed because there was 3 of us. I don't count it as a third place finish. Third of 3 to me, like it's a Borg notification. It's not my place. The other 2 guys earned it because the other 2 guys beat my ass. They won. They got first and second respectively. I just got last place. That's how I look at it. But again, I'm hard on myself. But it gave me my provincial qualifier, which was also being held in Niagara that year. I didn't feel ready, but I thought I'd give it a shot. I wanted to do it because I qualified. All right, this is also Phil from the future jumping in because upon editing this, I realized I made a boo-boo. I missed an event for Battle at the Brink. After the rope drag into arm over arm, we had deadlift for reps, and the deadlift weight we had was 570 pounds, and it was the only one that I won. I was the only one that moved it, and it was like big win for me because I didn't zero it, and I won it with one really ugly rep. It wasn't pretty, but my God, it went, and that's all I cared about. So I just wanted to jump back in here, interject that before I moved on to the next show, because I completely missed it, and it was the one I was looking forward to sort of the most. And yeah, not a great deadlift. You can see my hands start to open. It was slack. They gave me a generous down command, but I'll take it. So back to your regularly scheduled programming. And so Provincials that year was being held at Just Be Strong, which just opened up. That weekend, they had the event. They had the mayor come out for the ribbon cutting. It was a big event. That gym is amazing. It's my second favorite gym to train at right now outside of Skull House, because Skull House is my home, and that's number 1 to me. But Just Be Strong and that community they've built down there is amazing. They have the strongest people in Ontario that train there. Wes Derwitsky trains there, who's a strongman. He's a professional strongman, a world's strongest man competitor. Justin Zottel trains there, who's the best power lifter in all of Canada right now. They have a list of amateur strongmen and powerlifters that train there that are great. So it is a great location. And going down there to compete for provincials, while I did absolutely garbage, I'm glad to have gone because I got to meet more of those people and I got to make those connections, and it meant a lot to me. So provincials, I don't remember any of the weights. I remember the events. I don't remember the weights. I know I zeroed most of them. I don't have any video from the day, which is super rare for me. But that provincials really sucked the life out of me. We had an axle clean and press, an axle deadlift, farmers, and the farmers we had to do 3 picks, and on the 3rd pick we could go, and I got 2 picks and couldn't do the 3rd. Then we had a sandbag toss for reps, and then a sandbag over bar. And this was a big blow because I had told myself it doesn't matter how I do in my first year. You know, my coach told me that, you know, you're ready, go do it and have fun. But he also cautioned me that, like, you're not going to be good your first year. It's not common to be good your first year. There are guys that can do it 100%. There are guys that can go out there in their first year and just absolutely crush. And that goes for amateur levels and provincial levels, or amateur levels and professional levels. I've seen guys on a provincial level show up. I saw it this year at Muskoka Mayhem. There was a guy in the heavyweight group that went out there. First of all, it doesn't look like he cares about anything. He's just kind of like, yeah, I'm glad to be here, but then ran away with the division because he's ridiculously strong. And it happens at a professional level. If you look at Mitch Hooper, when he first showed up to World's Strongest Man as a reserve, he won his group. He beat Brian Shaw in his group, and then it kind of took off after that. So I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying, for me, it wasn't going to be realistic. JF had prepped me for that, to say, hey, listen, go have fun. You're going to do good at these things, and you're going to struggle at these things, but learn. Watch the people that do really well at those things and learn from them. And he was right. It was a tough pill to swallow because I like to have my tires pumped for sure, but I also like the truth. And I don't want a lot of sunshine blown up my ass. I'd rather just people be real with me so I can kind of set my expectations. And I generally set my expectations low because I'm super harsh on myself. So although I had told myself that I wasn't going to do well because I was still new, it didn't make it any easier not to do well. If that makes sense. It still hurt. And that's okay because I still learned a lot. And I knew it was my first year, but I also knew it wasn't my last year. Because outside of how I did, I had a lot of fun doing it. Because I realized the strongman community is a little bit different than the powerlifting community, just in the way the events are run. And it was definitely at times a lot more fun to be at a strongman show as a competitor than it can be at a powerlifting show as a competitor. And that's just my opinion as somebody who's there. People may not share that opinion, and I totally respect that. We may not agree, but I'll defend to the death your right to disagree with me and to have your opinion. But just over the last few years that I've competed, the strongman community was a lot of fun to be around throughout the entire day. Powerlifting has its ups and downs. Not that it's not fun, it just has its ups and downs. So that wrapped up my first strongman year. But it wasn't the end of my year. I wanted to do powerlifting. I wanted to end my year with powerlifting because I still loved doing powerlifting because it was the first thing that I did to get into strength competing, and I wanted to do it. So I went back to Apex. Apex had moved their tournament of power from November, which was the year before, to the summer in 2023, but they did Liftmas instead, which I absolutely loved. It was in December and I was ready for it. So after Provincials ended in July, I still did strongman training, but I refocused for Liftmas because I wanted to hit a 600-pound deadlift. That was my new goal. That was my sight. The rest of the competition was kind of going to be whatever it was, but I wanted that 600-pound deadlift. So that was the goal. That's what we focused on. We kept the strongman stuff because I had another season coming up in 2024. Then we did Liftmas. So Apex Liftmas. Weighed in at 262.5 pounds, which was up from the 257.9 pounds I was at the year before. But my squat attempts were the exact same as the year before. 507 to open with. This 507 moved a heck of a lot better than it did in 2022. Then I jumped up to 551.1. Again, felt really good. Also felt really good having Justin Zottel as the main referee there in front of me because you can hear his commands almost better than anybody's. And then my final attempt, 584.2, which is what I had failed the year before. And this time I wasn't going to leave it in the hands of the judges or the spotters. And I nailed it. And I was super happy with it. I was happy to start my day 3 for 3. And then we moved on to bench press, opening with 314.1, which was up from the 308 that I had done the year before. So I was already starting. It's nice. That was kind of a nice win for me to be like, hey, I'm opening at basically 315 pounds. 315 that's the gym bro, right? The 3 plates. That's what they all want. Hey, come on. We can do it. 3 plates. What are you doing? I'm only doing the Italian part because I had Rocco helping me that day, who's one of my best friends, who's been to both strongman and powerlifting for me and has been an immense help there. I also had a couple of friends in the crowd that have been to my shows and have been, again, they're just part of that support system. They're part of that crew that means more to me almost than my lifting. So having Rocco there to help was great. He was there for my handoff, open 315, hit it. From there, I jumped to 341.7, which was 11 pounds better than my second attempt last year. And again, I got that one. And then we went to see if we could do 6 for 6. We went 352. The 341 matched my PR from last year. So my third attempt was going to be a PR, 352.7. And we got it. Amazing. We're off to a good start. 6 for 6 so far. So we moved on to deadlifts. Deadlifts, I opened big, way bigger than I opened the year before. 530 was my opener. The year prior, I opened at 512. So already I'm seeing now a year later, this is the benefits of having a coach. This is the benefit of having somebody program for me. This is the benefit to somebody saying, here's what we're doing this week. Go do it. So looking at the numbers year over year, it's like, cool, we're making progress. So 529, say 530, hit the opener, no problem. After that, we moved to 578, which was just off of the 584 I'd hit last year. And again, moved really well. I was super impressed with how I was feeling. So now 8 for 8. I try not to put a lot of stock in the whole 9 for 9 thing. I have had so many discussions with people that have almost turned into arguments, I would say, where guys will say, if you go 9 for 9, it means you didn't try hard enough. Other guys will say, well, you went 9 for 9. That's the goal. You want to be perfect on the day. Truthfully, I don't care. I like going 9 for 9 because it looks good on paper to me. It looks nice and clean and crisp. And I'm like, hey, cool. But I can see the argument where it's like, well, you had more in the tank if you went 9 for 9. I don't know if I fully believe that. And that's because I went 9 for 9 the next year at Liftmas, and my squat, I know I didn't have any more in the tank on. And we'll get to that in the next video. So 578.7 in the books. We moved on to 600.7. I like the 0.7. I like the kilograms because I'm able to say it was over 600 pounds. I don't care that it was by 0.7 kilograms. It was over 600 pounds. So went out there and hit it. So pulled 600 pounds, went 9 for 9, finished the day with a 1537 total and a 401 dots. And that rounded out my year. That was it. 2023, my first year doing strongman and powerlifting together, my first full calendar year under JF, and another year in the powerlifting community, and now a new community being built in strongman. Looking back at these videos is kind of fun because it hasn't been that long. That was only 2 years ago, and not even 2 years ago. And I can already see an improvement in my bench press with how I set up. If you look at my bench press here, it's narrow grip, right? I'm wider now. Deadlift's a little bit more narrow than before. I've made small adjustments. My squat has been adjusted a little bit. And that's all going to get talked about in the next couple of videos. But that's it. 2023. Some highs, some big highs that we ended the year with, and some lows that kind of sucked. But you know what? I learned from it. I built on it. And I was glad to do it. So that rounds out 2023. We're going to look at 2024 in the next video. And then after that, we'll do a 2025 recap because that will probably bring us up to speed. So thanks, guys. Stay strong.